Nancy Kulp, the beloved star known for her prim and proper role on the Beverly Hillbillies, was always full of surprises off-screen. And Redd Foxx, the sharp-tongued king of comedy who broke barriers and never held back. But what almost no one knew was that these two Hollywood opposites shared a secret connection, a quiet romance, hidden for years. And now, the truth is finally out. But would you have expected Nancy Kulp and Redd Foxx to fall for each other? Comment 1 for yes. Love is unpredictable, or 0 for no, it shocks you too. Join us in this video as we clarify this secret relationship. Comedy meets prim grace. In Hollywood's golden age, Nancy Kulp, beloved as the prim Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, was known for her sharp wit and impeccable decorum. But behind her composed public persona lay a secret that few ever suspected, a romance with the legendary Redd Foxx, a man she treasured in private while keeping the world at bay. To audiences, Kulp and Foxx seemed an unlikely duo. She was elegant, refined, and conservative. He was brash, bold, and boundary-pushing. Yet according to a recent YouTube documentary, she dated Redd Foxx in secret. Now we know the reason why. Theirs was a tender connection formed in Hollywood's backstage shadows. Their romance was never public. It was conducted in private but not without depth. For decades, fans of classic television might never have imagined a connection between two beloved but wildly different stars. The sophisticated and funny actress Nancy Kulp is most recognized for her role as the prim and proper Miss Jane Hathaway on the television show The Beverly Hillbillies, as well as Redd Foxx, the boisterous and street-smart comic who became famous for his role as the quick-witted Fred Sanford on the television show Sanford and Son. On the other hand, behind the scenes of Hollywood's golden period, the two individuals enjoyed a connection that was not only surprising, but also profoundly intriguing. This connection was concealed from the public view for a considerable amount of time. When it came to their professional lives, Nancy Kulp and Redd Foxx traveled in completely different circles, with her acute intellect, dignified attitude, and career in journalism and the military. Kulp had a reputation for being a lady who was reserved and serious-minded. She was a member of the Women's Reserve in the United States Navy during World War II and possessed a degree in journalism from Florida State University. She also served in the National Guard at that time. Her eloquent voice and imposing presence gained her tiny jobs in the early 1950s, which ultimately led her to pursue a career in acting. Her route to acting was nearly accidental. Almost immediately, she became known for playing the eccentric and spinsterish intellectual in a series of character parts, the most renowned of which was her portrayal as Jane Hathaway, the prim and proper secretary in the Beverly Hillbillies, which she played from 1962 to 1971. Redd Foxx, on the other hand, was a powerhouse of raw humor. He was entrenched in the world of filthy stand-up and nightclub routines long before network television sanitized his character. Redd Foxx was a force before network television. Foxx, who was known as the king of the party records, began his career on the black entertainment circuit, also known as the Chitlin circuit. During this time, he developed a persona that was irreverent, fast-talking, and full of humorous edge. The television show Sanford and Son, which aired in the 1970s and made him a household celebrity, was where he brought that same intensity when he made the leap from radio to television. The quiet and measured tone of someone like Nancy Kulp is very different from his flair, swagger, and unashamed bluntness. He stands out from the crowd. So how did two such different people come together? Secret relationship. Their relationship evolved during a time when both celebrities were navigating the complex undercurrents of celebrity, personal identity, and the ever-watchful eye of the press. According to sources who subsequently revealed secrets that had been kept secret for a long time, it is said that they first met at a charity event in Los Angeles in the late 1960s, which was a time when both performers were at the pinnacle of their success in the television industry. They bonded on a deeper and more intellectual level, despite the fact that their public personalities couldn't have been more drastically different from one another. Both individuals were well known for their avid reading habits, their fervent advocacy for civil rights, and their willingness to question the norms of society in their personal lives. The great scrutiny that existed during that time period is said to have been the reason why their relationship stayed a secret for such a long period of time. Not only did they have the distinction of being an interracial couple at a high period of time when such partnerships were frequently faced with opposition, but both of them were extremely private people. Kulp was noted for her ability to dodge queries about her personal life, despite the fact that she never publicly disclosed that she was lesbian or bisexual. During this time, Foxx was already managing a chaotic public image that was formed by several marriages and personal troubles. As a result, he had his own reasons for keeping his love entanglements a secret. Additionally, there is the possibility that the relationship was more than merely romantic in nature. There was a genuine convergence of thoughts. Both Kulp and Foxx were allegedly captivated to her brilliance, sharp wit, and sense of humor. Kulp liked Foxx's bold approach to comedy and social criticism, while Foxx was apparently drawn to her. Those who seen them together at private gatherings and parties, when they would engage in lengthy talks, frequently laughing and discussing till the early hours of the morning, were able to observe their chemistry, even if it was never displayed on TV through their interactions. In the end, it is possible that their connection was just temporary or that it was merely a single chapter in the longer and more complex lives that they both had. Kulp went deceased in 1991, and Foxx also passed away in 1991, according to the numerous accounts that have surfaced in the years that have gone since their deaths. It is now easier to see how they are connected to one another. A hidden relationship was not the only thing that they had in common. They also had a peaceful friendship and mutual respect for one another, which defied social norms and expectations. Their narrative serves as a powerful reminder that even in the glamour and spectacle of Hollywood, some of the most lasting connections are formed away from the limelight. These relationships are founded on friendship, empathy, and a desire to see past the roles that others give us. Ultimately, it is possible that the underlying reason their relationship was kept secret for such a long period of time was not controversy, but rather the desire to safeguard something that is uncommon and genuine in a society that so frequently strives to define people based solely on their outward appearance. The romance wasn't dramatic, it was tender. Crew members and friends recall evenings of soft laughter, shared jokes, and quiet walks on studio backlots. A prop master remembers Nancy gently nudging Redd mid-laugh. "Only you can make me snort like that." Moments like this stayed between them, spoken softly and never shouted. At its core, their decision for secrecy came down to freedom. Two souls who loved laughter and valued peace. They chose intimacy over exposure. Their love didn't conform to Hollywood templates, and they refused to let it be consumed by anyone else's story. Love stories like this are what keep old Hollywood fascinating. If you want more untold truths from classic TV stars, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Marriage life. Long before she became a household name as the delightfully prim and efficient Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, Nancy Kulp experienced a more private, lesser-known chapter in her life, one that is rarely discussed but quietly shaped her path. On April 1st, 1951, Nancy Kulp married Charles Malcolm Dacus in Dade County, Florida. At the time, Kulp was still laying the foundation for what would become a long and varied career in entertainment. Having transitioned from journalism to public relations and eventually into acting, she was a woman on the cusp of transformation, personally and professionally. The marriage, much like Kulp herself, was discreet, marked by a level of privacy that would define much of her off-screen life. The union lasted 10 years. It was not a marriage that made headlines, nor did it result in children or a trail of public appearances. In fact, even as Kulp's star rose in the 1950s through roles in films like The Caine Mutiny and Sabrina, little was ever said about her husband. Charles Dacus remained largely out of the public eye, and Kulp never offered extensive commentary on their relationship. Interviews spanning her decades-long career reveal very few, if any, direct references to her time as a wife. In 1961, after a decade together, the marriage came to an end. The reasons for their divorce remain undocumented in the public record, shielded from speculation by Kulp's characteristic reserve. Yet the timing of their separation is notable. It coincided with a major turning point in Kulp's life. Just 1 year later, in 1962, she would land the role that would define her legacy, Miss Hathaway, the no-nonsense, intelligent, and hilariously straight-laced secretary to banker Milburn Drysdale on the Beverly Hillbillies. The show would become a massive hit, cementing her place in television history. The dissolution of her marriage seemed to mark a distinct shift in focus. From that point on, Kulp would remain single for the rest of her life. Rather than dwell on her past, she poured herself into her work, becoming one of the most recognizable faces in American sitcoms during the 1960s. Her portrayal of Miss Hathaway, a character who herself defied the traditional expectations placed on women at the time, resonated deeply with audiences. Off-screen, Kulp's personal choices mirrored the independence and strength of the character she played. In the years following her television fame, Kulp would redirect her energy toward education, charitable causes, and even politics. In 1984, she ran for the U.S. House of Representatives in Pennsylvania as a Democrat, showcasing her commitment to civic engagement and progressive ideals. Her post-Hollywood years were marked by a quiet dignity, intellectual pursuit, and public service, a reflection of the values she carried long after the camera stopped rolling. While Nancy Kulp never remarried, and while details of her relationship with Charles Dacus remain scant, this chapter of her life offers a glimpse into the woman behind the roles. It suggests a complexity often hidden beneath the sitcom surface, a private life filled with quiet decisions, deliberate choices, and an unspoken strength. Post-marriage life. After decades of television stardom and public recognition, Nancy Kulp made a conscious decision in the late 1980s to step away from the industry that had once defined her. Rather than fading into obscurity, she gracefully transitioned into a quieter, more introspective chapter of her life, one rooted in simplicity, service, and personal fulfillment. Kulp's first destination was a rural farm in Connecticut. It was a far cry from the bright lights of Hollywood, but precisely what she needed. Tucked away from the public eye, the farm offered her peace, solitude, and the gentle rhythm of nature. There, among rolling fields and early morning sunrises, Kulp found a different kind of stage, one where the performance was life itself. She grew her own vegetables, cared for animals, and embraced the healing silence that comes only when the cameras stop rolling. But even in semi-retirement, Kulp never entirely left the world of performance behind. With decades of industry experience and a passion for the craft, she began teaching acting and drama, quietly shaping a new generation of performers. Her students, many of whom entered her classes unaware of her storied past, quickly came to admire her for far more than her resume. They found in her a mentor who was warm, insightful, and deeply committed to the artistry of storytelling. She pushed her students not toward fame, but toward authenticity, urging them to perform with truth, integrity, and heart. Eventually, Nancy Kulp relocated to Palm Springs, California, a city that offered both serenity and community. Known for its picturesque desert landscapes and vibrant artistic circles, Palm Springs became her final home. But it was not retirement in the traditional sense. Kulp continued to give back, not with fanfare or publicity, but with unwavering dedication. One of her most meaningful roles in this period was her affiliation with the Humane Society of the Desert. Long known for her affection toward animals, Kulp channeled her energy into rescuing and rehabilitating those most in need. She advocated for animal welfare with the same tenacity she once brought to her acting roles, participating in outreach programs and public education campaigns focused on responsible pet ownership. Her work with the Humane Society was not just charitable, it was personal. Friends and neighbors often recalled seeing her walk her own rescue dogs, always ready to share a smile or lend a hand to an animal in distress. Kulp also remained close to the arts through her involvement with the Desert Theater League. Though she no longer acted on stage, she became a beloved figure in the local theater community, offering critiques, supporting productions, and mentoring aspiring artists. Her presence was a quiet blessing, a bridge between the glamour of old Hollywood and the raw ambition of community theater. Unlike many of her peers, Nancy Kulp never sought a comeback, nor did she dwell on the fame that had once been hers. She had lived a full life in the spotlight and had chosen, with great intention, to spend her final years on her own terms, in Palm Springs, among animals, students, and community members. She wrote a second act that was quieter but no less profound. In Palm Springs, Nancy Kulp's artistic spirit found a second wind in the vibrant local theater community. No longer in front of the camera but never far from the stage, Kulp embraced a quieter, yet profoundly meaningful, return to performance. Her involvement was far from ceremonial. She attended performances regularly, mentored young actors with a patient and practiced hand, and occasionally graced local productions with her talent. These appearances were cherished by fellow artists and audience members alike, not because they offered a glimpse of celebrity, but because they revealed someone genuinely invested in the art of storytelling. Her humility was striking. Despite having once worked alongside some of the biggest names in Hollywood, Kulp never carried herself with pretense. She took joy in helping emerging talent navigate the intricacies of character development, stage presence, and emotional honesty. In every workshop, rehearsal, or post-performance conversation, she passed along the wisdom of a life lived in and around the performing arts, always framing her advice not as doctrine, but as encouragement. In the desert stages of Palm Springs, Nancy Kulp was not a star reliving past glories. She was a mentor, a patron, and a beloved member of the artistic family. Beyond the stage, her philanthropic efforts grew even more impactful. One of her most passionate causes was United Cerebral Palsy, a non-profit organization devoted to supporting individuals with cerebral palsy and other developmental disabilities. Kulp wasn't content to be a figurehead. She threw herself into the work. Whether she was hosting fundraising galas, participating in public awareness campaigns, or volunteering at community outreach events, she brought warmth, sincerity, and visibility to an often overlooked cause. Her advocacy reflected a deep empathy for those facing adversity. Friends often remarked that Nancy had an uncanny ability to make people feel seen, no matter their background or limitations. In working with UCP, she found purpose and alignment between her public platform and her private convictions. She viewed her role not as an obligation born of fame, but as a privilege born of compassion. By the time the 1990s dawned, Nancy Kulp's legacy had stretched far beyond her work on the Beverly Hillbillies or her sharp-tongued character, Miss Jane Hathaway. In Palm Springs and beyond, she had become something rarer and more enduring, a woman who used the tools of fame to uplift others, to amplify causes in need of voices, and to guide the next generation with grace. Whether she was comforting an abandoned animal, inspiring a nervous young actor, or championing the rights of the disabled, Nancy Kulp lived her later years with a clarity of purpose that defied the stereotypes of aging actresses. In a world obsessed with reinvention and comebacks, she found fulfillment not in recapturing the spotlight, but in redirecting it toward others. Her post-Hollywood life, far from being a quiet retreat, became a masterclass in meaningful legacy building, proving that the most powerful performances sometimes happen off-stage, in classrooms, shelters, theaters, and community centers. In every role she took on, teacher, advocate, neighbor, and friend, Nancy Kulp remained a woman of integrity, intelligence, and unshakable heart. Early life. The birth of Nancy Kulp's Nancy Jane Kulp was an American actress who was born on August 28, 1921 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. She was a beloved character actress during the golden age of television due to her distinctive voice, towering presence, and remarkable comedic timing. Although she is most famous for her unforgettable portrayal of Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, her life and career encompassed a great deal more than just one iconic role. Between her early years as a student and a wartime servicewoman, her work in Hollywood, and her later forays into politics and education, Nancy Kulp has left behind a legacy that is a testament to her brilliance, bravery, and tenacity. Nancy Jane Kulp spent her childhood in the quaint community of Mifflintown, Pennsylvania, before relocating to Miami-Dade County, Florida, when she was a teenager. She went on to get a bachelor's degree in journalism from Florida State University, which is now known as Florida State College for Women. She was a brilliant and dedicated student who went on to attend Florida State University. Kulp was well known for her bright intelligence and early ambition, both of which would continue to be characteristics that could be found throughout her whole life. Due to her insatiable need for knowledge, she decided to pursue further education at the University of Miami, where she ultimately earned a master's degree in both English and French. In the beginning, Kulp's passion for language and writing led her to pursue a career in journalism. She began her career in the entertainment sector by working as a journalist for a newspaper in Miami, and subsequently she moved on to work in the publicity department at MGM Studios. These experiences provided her with information about the inner workings of the entertainment industry. Having these roles behind the scenes allowed her to gain crucial knowledge, and in the long run, they helped fuel her ambition to appear on the other side of the camera. During World War II, Kulp placed her burgeoning career in the media on wait in order to serve her nation. This decision brought about a significant change in her life. She became a member of the United States Naval Reserve in the year 1944. She served with distinction and reached the rank of lieutenant junior grade, demonstrating both her patriotism and her bravery during her service. Over the course of her life, she served in the military, which contributed to the development of her strong sense of discipline and leadership, as well as her lifelong dedication to public service and civic responsibility. Kulp wore her uniform with the same level of pride that she would later display in whatever character that she would portray on television. She was one of the few actresses of her period who could claim to have such first-hand experience in military duty. In the early 1950s, Nancy Kulp made the shift from singing to acting. The casting directors who were looking for one-of-a-kind character performers were immediately drawn to her because of her tall body, her unusual voice, and her eccentric personality. In films such as The Model and The Marriage Broker, Shane, and A Star is Born, she played supporting roles. Her most notable film appearances were in these flicks. For the most part, they are portrayed as spinsters, secretaries, or quirky villagers. Despite the fact that these parts were rather minor, Kulp managed to make each one memorable with her nuanced performances. Her major break came when she was hired in the role of Miss Jane Hathaway, the prim and competent secretary to banker Milburn Drysdale, in the CBS comedy The Beverly Hillbillies, which ran from 1962 to 1971. Masterful work was done by Kulp in his portrayal of Miss Hathaway. She performed the role with a combination of stiff professionalism and a subtle love yearning, particularly in her latent desire on the ignorant Jethro Bodine, who was portrayed by Max Baer Jr. She was nominated for an Emmy Award in 1967 for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Humor Series due to her deadpan replies, physical humor, and dignified manner, all of which contributed to her being a fan favorite. Not only did her performance contribute to the popularity of the play, but it also established Kulp as a permanent figure in the annals of American popular culture. She made appearances in a large number of television shows from the 1950s to the 1980s, including Perry Mason, The Bob Cummings Show, Sanford and Son, The Love Boat, and Murphy Brown, in addition to her role in the Beverly Hillbillies during the course of her career. Because of her versatility, she was able to perform humorous and tragic parts with equal degree of accomplishment. In addition to that, she has provided her voice for a number of animated television series, demonstrating her extensive range and distinctive delivery. Kulp's life transitioned into a new phase that was characterized by public service and education after she had spent some time working in the entertainment sector. Her campaign for the United States Congress in Pennsylvania's 9th District began in the early 1980s. She was a Democrat and advocated for social justice, environmental preservation, and increased educational opportunities. Her candidacy highlighted her bravery and unyielding ideals, despite the fact that she ultimately lost the race. This was in part owing to the strong resistance from Republicans and the controversial lack of support from Buddy Ebsen, who had previously worked with her alongside them. Kulp went back to her academic career after she left her political campaign. At Juniata College in Pennsylvania, where she was a professor of acting and theater, she shared her passion for the performing arts, as well as her expertise with young people who aspired to be actors. Honesty, intelligence, and humility were three qualities that her pupils valued about her. When Kulp was in the classroom, she was recognized for her painstaking attention to detail and her enthusiasm for narrative. This was true both on-set and in the classroom. Health challenges. In final years of her life, Nancy Kulp, who is best remembered for her role as the prim and proper Miss Jane Hathaway on the popular television series The Beverly Hillbillies, struggled with major health issues. Kulp was a cigarette smoker for a very long period, and it is quite likely that this habit played a role in the development of the sickness that would ultimately result in her passing. During a period in which the health dangers connected with tobacco use were not yet generally understood, she started smoking, just like many other people of her generation did at the same time. In addition, cigarettes were frequently represented as being trendy and even sophisticated before. The use of tobacco for decades would, unfortunately, have ramifications that would last a lifetime. The knowledge that Kulp had cancer was a discovery that marked the beginning of a challenging and excruciating final chapter in her life. This revelation occurred in the year 1990. Her courageous decision to undergo chemotherapy in an effort to fight the sickness was not made public, despite the fact that the exact type of cancer she had was not divulged. It is well known that chemotherapy, which is a rigorous treatment that is frequently required, is associated with a number of unpleasant side effects, such as tiredness, hair loss, nausea, and a damaged immune system. Kulp tackled her sickness with the same resiliency and elegance that had marked a significant portion of her life and work thus far, despite the fact that the treatment had a significant impact on both her physical and mental health. Final months and passing. On the other hand, by 1991, only 1 year after she was initially diagnosed, her condition had considerably deteriorated for the worse. The cancer had spread, which is an indication that it had metastasized, and the therapies were no longer having the desired effect of slowing the growth of the disease. At the same time as her health was quickly deteriorating, her friends, family, and admirers were saddened. Nancy Kulp passed away on February 3, 1991, at the age of 69, in Palm Desert, California, a tranquil desert community where she had spent her later years. She had lived there for the most of her life. Within the annals of American television history, her passing signified the passing of a singular and cherished personality, a lady who had not only had the ability to amuse millions of people, but had made significant strides as a female comedy actor in a profession that was controlled by men. Kulp's remains were brought back to the state of Pennsylvania, where she was born and raised. After she passed away, Westminster Presbyterian Cemetery, located in Mifflintown, a little town hidden in Juniata County, was the location where she was laid to rest forever. This tranquil setting of the cemetery serves as a location where fans and loved ones may pay respect to the woman's legacy, and it also acts as a reflection of the woman's own calm dignity. Although she is no longer physically present, the contributions that Nancy Kulp made to television, the unforgettable performances that she gave, and the pioneering spirit that she possessed will continue to live on in the hearts of people who will always love her work and her life. What about Foxx? Kulp's life after that point shifted toward a more private, rural existence, teaching and later participating in charitable work, especially in Palm Springs. Foxx, meanwhile, remained in the public spotlight, focusing on his comedy, television, and personal challenges well into the late 1980s. Following the late 1960s and early 1970s, Foxx became widely known not only for his groundbreaking comedy, but also for his complex personal life. He married 4 times in total, and his romantic relationships were often passionate, stormy, and scrutinized by the media. In 1991, not long before his death, Foxx married Ka-ho Cho, a South Korean cocktail waitress he had met in Las Vegas. Their relationship raised eyebrows, largely because of the age gap. Foxx was 68 at the time, and Cho was significantly younger. The marriage, though brief, symbolized Foxx's continued search for stability and connection amid his declining health and financial troubles. Sadly, the couple had only been married for a few months when Foxx died. The 1980s and early 1990s were difficult for Foxx financially. Despite his success on Sanford and Son and other television ventures, he faced mounting tax issues with the IRS, who famously raided his Las Vegas home and seized assets in 1989. He also filed for bankruptcy during this time. These challenges overshadowed much of his later career and likely took a toll on his personal relationships. Although he had a reputation for being brash and controversial on stage, Foxx was deeply loyal to his friends. He maintained close ties with comedians like Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. In fact, it was Murphy who helped resurrect Foxx's career in the late 1980s by casting him in the film Harlem Nights and producing the CBS sitcom The Royal Family, which marked Foxx's return to television just before his death. Foxx's final years were a mix of professional revival and personal struggle. While he brought laughter to millions, he often battled loneliness and the burdens that came with fame, particularly as an African-American entertainer who had broken barriers but rarely received the full respect or compensation he deserved. If the rumored relationship with Nancy Kulp was a moment of serenity in his otherwise turbulent personal life, it would stand as a rare exception, an intimate, perhaps intellectual connection that contrasted with the often chaotic relationships that followed. In hindsight, the bond between Foxx and Kulp, 2 fiercely independent spirits navigating different challenges, would have been a quiet footnote in a life otherwise filled with noise, spotlight, and unpredictability. Redd Foxx passed away on October 11, 1991, after suffering a heart attack on the set of The Royal Family. He died as he had lived, a performer to the end, leaving behind a legacy of laughter, complexity, and a life that still invites curiosity and admiration. While it's possible they stayed in touch sporadically, especially given their rumored fondness for one another, there is no documented reunion, correspondence, or final meeting known to the public. Their deaths occurring in the same year may be a poignant coincidence rather than the closing chapter of an ongoing relationship. What do you think about Nancy and Redd's hidden romance? Was it right to keep it secret, or should love always be loud? Tap like if you believe love knows no boundaries. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, i.e., true stories from Hollywood's golden years.